My guest this week is Steve Young. Steve is a comedy writer, best known for his work with David Letterman, Matt Groening, and Lorne Michaels. Steve has received multiple Emmy and WGA nominations, as well as an Annie Award for his animation writing. The film writes to Everything's Coming Up Profits. Steve's book about the secret world of industrial musicals were bought by Amblin, and the book also inspired Focus Features' critically acclaimed documentary, Bathtubs Over Broadway, which Steve also stars in. Post-Letterman, Steve has pursued numerous creative projects, including music and songwriting. In 2024, he released an album of alt-country originals entitled Broken Heart Insurance, and he's written, produced, and starred in several award-winning short comedy films. Currently, he's doing live comedy, music performances, as well as hosting events about industrial musicals. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome the Revolutions Per Movie, Steve Young. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Chris.
Oh, there's the voice. Yeah, it's haunted me through this documentary and then through your book. But here, you don't know me. I'm going to put you at ease. Shh. Your attention, please. Settle back and listen. Let's reduce the dim. Your Revolutions Per Movie sales meeting is about to begin. There we go.
Yeah, okay.
We're synced up now. We trust each other.
That's a pretty deep cut. I'm impressed by that.
I've seen your documentary so many times. It is sick. I just watched it again with my 27-year-old daughter this week who had not seen it and then was immediately like, do you have the book? I'm like, here's the book. Go home. I need it by next week. So I drove over and got it back. I love learning about you because the film Bathtubs Over Broadway is also an interesting story about you discovering, in a weird haphazard way, industrial musicals, but also about kind of the end of your time working with David Letterman. And now that we're coming to the end of like the Late Show as a concept right now, I just wanted to ask you a little bit about your time with David Letterman, if that's okay. Because one of the first things he says in the movie is, I consider Steve to be the last vestige of the heyday of late night talk show television writers. There are precious few of these men and women who can do this. Now, stepping into the world of the Late Show and David Letterman, was that easy to find your voice in it?
When I joined the staff in 1990, I was only 24.
Wow.
I had the makings of a voice, but I don't think I really had a voice yet. I had inclinations, but it was going to take years of practice. And luckily, the head writer, Steve O'Donnell, who hired me, saw something that he thought could be cultivated. Dave Letterman also must have thought, if he bothered to think about it, well, this guy has some potential. There are glimmers of something. But I think it took me many years to really lock into, and I'm sure it's an ongoing project even now. Hopefully in future years, I'll say, oh, in 2026, I was still green. I didn't know what I was doing.
I hear you.
Yeah, I definitely grew into the job over the years and developed a voice that by necessity had to be Dave Letterman's voice. But on a good day was his voice plus a little something extra that he hadn't seen before that just enlarged the scope of what was possible on the show.
Yeah, it's amazing watching the footage of the show because I feel like everyone is a lot more familiar with, like, people just talk up SNL's process, like, oh, how crazy it is. And it's just a mad race and things getting cut at the last minute. And I'm like, well, late night's doing it all the time, and things are just like killing their darlings, and you see it in the film. Like, you're on the phone being like, this line, trying to just make sure that things are getting on the air. Could you even breathe in that thing, in that process?
It seems remarkable to me now that I could do that on a daily basis. My mental stamina has probably atrophied a lot since then. But for years, it was just, this is what we do. This is what we do. And come in the morning with some ideas ready to pitch, and then just get on this treadmill that is a little bit faster than you can technically keep up with, but you have to keep going, and make your pieces down in the edit room with the voiceover people and the graphics people, and pick some production music. And then you're also writing the top 10 list, and you're also whatever other project we need to figure out what we're doing out on the street with the camera today. And then I was running the monologue for the last 11 years of the show.
Wow.
So it Yes, when I look back on it now, I think I'm not sure how that worked every day. And some days it didn't work particularly well. That
Sure.
trial by fire over the years, you learned 74 checklist items to make sure you had gotten, or the whole thing's going to blow up in your face. But yeah, that was just a muscle that grew and toned, and now it's gotten completely flabby. I can't.
No, I get it. It was so weird when Guided by Voices played Conan O'Brien. We saw them rehearsing the comedy sketches, and they were so excited. And then I remember we were backstage, getting ready to go on, and Alec Baldwin went long. He stayed an extra segment,
Uh-oh.
and Conan was pissed. Like, it was amazing to realize, like, oh shit, yeah, they want to do the comedy. They want to do these things that are that's the thing they're excited about. It's not doing the interview. It was really fascinating.
I think over the years, Dave Letterman got better at and more interested in deep dive interviews. That's why he went on to do his Netflix show.
Mm-hmm.
And after however many decades, maybe there are fewer nights when the comedy truly enthralls a top level veteran like him. So we understood we were there to provide material to fill time on the show. But if Dave was in a mood to just talk, or to talk with Tom Brokaw or Julia Roberts, that's what it was going to be. And you had to be okay with that.
Well, it's fascinating because one of the things I loved on, The Late Show, obviously, was Dave's record collection, right? I just, as somebody who grew up in the Northwest, we had access to a lot of private press records and a lot of religious records. But I don't remember coming across as many industrial musicals. And so can you describe like your job in terms of like how you would find those things and how it transformed from something that you were just picking out to be torn apart, and then the minute that you just realized there was some art in this?
So the Dave's record collection bit predated my time on the show. I think it started sort of organically around 83. Several staffers at the time said, I've got a weird record too. Robert Mitchum sings Calypso, or Sebastian Cabot reads the lyrics of Bob Dylan, or of course, William Shatner singing. That is kind of the ground zero of that sort of thing. So that piece existed for several years. By the time I got there, and I always tell the story that on my very first day at the Letterman show, April 30th, 1990, Steve O'Donnell, head writer, legend, met me at the elevator lobby and brought me into the offices. And he walked me down the hall on the 14th floor and said, we got to get you an office. Now, several writers had left in the preceding several months, moving out to the greener pastures of sitcom land in L.A. So there were several empty offices. And he said, how about this one? And I looked in this office. It seems fine. But I said, what's going on with all these boxes of records on the floor? And he said, the writer who used to have this office was in charge of a bit called Dave's Record Collection. Hey, maybe you'll be the new record collection guy. So within 20 minutes of my arrival at 30 Rock in 1990, I'd been very gently but definitely placed on a path that would shape a huge amount of my upcoming life. So the piece was, real unintentionally funny record albums. Dave would hold it up, announce what it was. Hopefully it's already funny just in the existence of it. And then you hear a clip and he's got a blow off line. I was going to the thrift shops, used record stores, of which there were a fair amount 35 years ago.
Yeah, where were you going in New York City? Because so many of them are just gone.
Yeah, Colony Records on Broadway, a few blocks down from what would become the Ed Sullivan Theater. There were a couple places in the Village. Footlight Records on East 12th Street. That was a remarkable place. That was all original cast albums and soundtrack albums. The only place I've ever walked into that had a bin with a section marker that said industrials.
Wow.
I think because in New York City, there was such a colony of performers and writers, people who had done these shows in the previous decades, either cleaning out their own closets or a family member cleaning something out after they passed away, and stuff was filtering into stores. And that's where I found many of the initial ones was at Footlight Records. I think I found Diesel Dazzle. I found My Insurance Man.
Wow.
A slew of them.
My insurance man.
Yeah. That's what they call you. Yeah. So by the time we had, I don't know, 3 or 4 of those, and 1 or 2 of them had gotten on the show. You see My Insurance Man in the documentary.
Yes.
But by the time I had 3 or 4, I, number one, realized maybe this is a genre that nobody's ever really talked about or noticed. And number 2, I cannot get the Diesel Dazzle and My Insurance Man songs out of my head. I'm still walking along, singing them weeks after record collection is over, and I've suddenly become immersed in the triumphs and tragedies of selling and servicing diesel engines. I thought, what is going on? This is better than quote unquote real comedy, because this is off the charts bizarre. It is real and it is sincere. It is hilarious at some level. But the killer was that on the better examples of these shows, they were just fantastic. They were just like clearly A-level people up and down the line worked on writing this stuff, producing it, orchestrating it, hiring the vocal talent. Just how can this is like the dark matter of the universe somehow that we're not supposed to see or hear or know about. And I've peeled back a little corner of something and looked in, and that's what got me going. Just like, this is crazy. No one else seems to know about it. That was not true, by the way, but
right
at the time it was. And it's hauntingly good when it's good.
There's a great quote at the beginning of the film where you say, "None of this should have happened. I shouldn't know about it. The stuff is bizarre and hilarious. Those are only the beginning layers. We were not supposed to hear these songs. We were not supposed to see these productions. It was supposed to be all thrown away and forgotten. But we played a trick on history and we saved it." And I will tell you, I can Shazam the songs in the movie and they come up.
Uh-huh.
It's like, that's where we're at. But that was like, it's just fascinating to me that now, through your book and through this amazing documentary, you want to live in this stuff more, because again, you start showing right away that like in your new obsession of like, oh, I have something that I'm passionate about, which you felt like was kind of missing in your life. You talk about like, I just found this thing that it found me, and now I have a purpose. It's like people are looking at the album covers with you and being like, oh yeah, those are the guys who wrote Fiddler on the Roof. These are the people who did Cabaret in Chicago. And you start realizing like Bob Fosse, Bob Newhart, Susan Stroman,
Cheetah Rivera, Florence Henderson, Martin, on and on and on.
And the budgets for these things were kind of immense compared to like what was going on Broadway. So they were able to just get A-listers, like you said, like the best people involved. But it was kind of like a weird, not dirty secret, but like something that like people just didn't know about. And if you lived and worked in that world, it was hard to get some respect, it seemed like.
Yeah, there was definitely a stink on it. I think maybe less so today. People aspire to doing well enough to be able to get a corporate gig, which is maybe telling. But back in the day, all these people I met and talked to, at first they were very nervous about talking to me, because they would say, how can you know about this stuff? And I would say, well, long story, but the Letterman show. And that was the red flag, because they had been taught over decades, this is not respectable. This is disgusting hack work, and you're a money grubbing loser if this is what you traffic in. So I had to talk people over the hurdle of, no, I'm not here to make fun of you. Never mind Letterman. This is me, and I want to talk to you about the Westinghouse Appliance musical or whatever. And slowly people would relax. But yes, the budgets were tremendous. I think a lot of people who hear about this genre glancingly, or maybe think, oh, I'll watch this documentary, they assume that we're talking about little skits in the company cafeteria. And then you see the Ford tractor show on the stage of Radio Music Hall with Rockettes and a 40-person orchestra. And Ford flew in 5,300 people from around the world for a one-time performance of this musical about how the tractors you sell are advancing the cause of humanity, and we're all marching together in a better future. If you could do that stuff right, and yes, the budget had to be good and the people had to be professional, but you could really hit people in the heart who are sitting in these chairs thinking, somebody gets it. Somebody understands that I want my work to matter. And my head is full of music, and there's tractors and rockettes, and I just feel like maybe my time on Earth is not wasted because I'm a tractor salesman.
Yeah, it's fascinating because, the performers and is it Hank who's talking about, he realizes that this is the first and last time he's going to hear the piece of music, Hank Beebe.
Oh yes, Hank Beebe, my dear friend.
Yeah.
And because I observed, I knew this from my investigations, but then his treasure trove of archives, dozens of shows I'd never heard of because almost nothing was recorded. My record collection, as large as it is for something so arcane, it's a tip of an iceberg. Almost everything ever done in this genre disappeared without a trace. And so it was very poignant for him to sit down at one of these shows and hear the orchestra fire up and running on all cylinders. And this is great. And realizing when this day is over, this music will almost certainly never be heard again.
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing when in the film. It's great because you get to meet the motley crew of people who also have the same passion you do. And it was fascinating that several of them were from the hardcore punk scene. So Don Bolles of the Germs and 45 Grave, Jello Biafra of the Dead Kennedys, and just the level of obsession and the way they can sing something on a note, like on a dime, just, pick up the sleeve and just you all start singing together. But one of my favorite moments is when, is it Jonathan Ward?
Yeah.
Is playing a song for you for the first time. And you're just like looking through sleeves and your head whips around and you look and you're like, I know what that is. I know who did that. I know who wrote it. And you're both debating like, well, he did some songs for that label for that show. And just you finding your people. I think it's such a great story for all of us, like whether it's like joining a band or like, writing on Late Show or whatever. It's like, I love that you found these other obsessed weirdos.
Yeah, there are so many Venn diagrams that you see in the course of Bathtubs Over Broadway. I'm not really a punk person. I don't know if I'd ever heard any Dead Kennedys before I was talking to Jello Biafra, but we had this overlap on our circles of enjoy bizarre records, and industrials were slotted right in there. Same with Don Bolles. He loves all sorts of bizarre records. He does have a healthy collection of these industrial shows, but he's all over lots of micro genres. But yeah, so I could talk to these people who there's no way I would have ever known them or met them if it wasn't for records. And then I'm talking to Susan Stroman, Cheetah Rivera, Florence Henderson, all these people from the musical theater world. And then the collectors and the musical people, and I turned out to be sort of this hub that all these spokes came off of. Although I will say, it's not just me. The book that you mentioned, Everything's Coming Up Profits, co-written with my friend Sport Murphy, another record collector.
This sucker right here.
That's right. And I do want to emphasize that I did not make the documentary. Many people assume that wrongly. You can't really make a legitimate documentary about yourself. You need to have this separation of church and state. My friend Dava Whisenant, who was an editor at the Letterman show when we first met, she'd gotten into working on films. She got wind of this stuff when the book was coming out and said, I think there's a documentary here. Would you allow me and work with me so that this could happen? And I was very confident that this would be a great idea, and I was completely vindicated. I don't think many documentary subjects go into a project with as carefree a feeling. I think a lot of people are wondering how their image is going to be presented and what is this going to be, make me look good or bad or in the middle. And that's why there are so many documentaries now that are not real documentaries. They're Celebrity X has complete creative control.
Totally.
And it's just, in my mind, that's not a documentary. That's a very expensive infomercial. And Bathtubs was not that. Dava made her own choices about what the movie was about and what was in it,
right,
what to shoot. And I was along for the ride, and what a great ride it was. But yes, it's she brought sensitivities to it that I never would have had, and made a story arc that was beyond my ability to create.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very emotional film, and your new friends say, well, Steve was the person who was putting all the pieces together. He was actually reaching out to people. And initially, I get it. Like, if you're a collector, your initial instinct is to just be like, I want access to some stuff I've been looking for. Maybe they've got something in their closet that I can have, and like, they might be able to lead me somewhere. But your genuine love for these people and the friendships and just the ease that they felt around you was really beautiful. Like, to just see you hang out with these people and just respect them on such an artistic level. And then the stories they have to tell you about doing the bathrooms are coming. And, I met my husband on the set, and then we got married, and we, when we got married, we danced to, was it My Bathroom? That thing?
It was.
My bathroom,
Yep.
my bathroom. It's
Yeah,
a very
that's
special kind of room. It's really beautiful. And that, I know, for you as a fan, was just blowing your mind, because in real time, you are unlocking things you have been desiring to find out, like why, how, who.
right. There were a lot of ways that my curiosity was taking me forward. On the most cynical level, it's okay, yes, I collect these records now. I wonder if this person, if I track them down, do they have a bunch of stuff in their closet that I've never heard? And sometimes that was true. And a lot of times it involves films of shows that I never would have known about otherwise. That's why we have the film of The Bathrooms Are Coming, and a few other ones. Hank Beebe had this GE Silicones film in his basement. So those are amazing treasures that just would not have been anything I would ever encounter without looking for these people. But I realized I was just sensitive and curious enough as a 28-year-old cynical young comedy punk, thinking, but how did this work? And did they like doing it? And was it meaningful? And it's just like, because every day at the Letterman show, I was turning out a lot of stuff. Most of it wasn't used, or if it was used, it was forgotten almost instantly. And how do you keep bringing the creative fire if you think you're just shoveling something into a black pit? And these folks were well paid, very well paid, but they had learned how to not do anything other than their best work, and because they had to satisfy themselves first. And I think everybody who does creative work, I'm sure you've felt that also. Like, if I'm going to do this weird thing, I just better turn it up to 10, or it's not going to be worth doing.
So in the heyday, which seems like the 60s was when when there was a ton of these a year, like, how many were being produced a year, do you think? Like, at the height of the musical industry?
Very hard to tell, because for every show that I have, either on a record or a film, or maybe even just a playbill or some photos or something, there's probably dozens that have never reached even that level of awareness. And it's hard to count things that you can't get any trace of at all. I think there must have been hundreds of these per year, probably by the late 50s into the mid 70s. And I would say the golden age tapers off toward the end of the 70s, partly economic reasons. For an English major comedy writer to have gained some facility in talking about this still amazes me. But I believe the tax laws eventually changed, and these shows were not the tax deduction that they had been for a long time.
I never thought of that. Wow.
I think that in the malaise era, accountants and consultants came in and said, don't waste money on this stuff that improves morale. We don't care whether people like to work here. We can't afford to care whether people believe in this company's mission. If they don't like it, they leave. We get somebody else. And I don't know if we've dug ourselves all the way out of that, But I think for a long time there was the sort of post-war rising tide where companies could afford to feel like, yeah, our people are like our family, and we're going to see them every year at these meetings, and we're going to be happy to get back together and celebrate and push on to the better future that obviously exists for America. So that optimism that Hank Beebe talked about by the 70s was sort of curdling and turning yellow and brittle at the edges. Also, I would say by the end of the 70s, you had people coming into adulthood and the workforce who maybe did not think musical theater was cool. That was something your grandmother liked. Now it's hard rock and disco. There are some shows in my collection that are glomming onto disco.
Was there ever like a new wave or a punk one? Did it ever get to that level?
Oh, all the way into the. I mean, it never dies out completely. I've seen
Okay.
sort of painful stuff from the 90s and beyond where a pharmaceutical company's got a big rap number with people rapping about the side effects and how you can talk to the doctors and assure them that it is always going to be hilarious. But then
Right.
luckily I stuck with it enough to get past. We can still think it's hilarious, but then we talk to people who say, I wanted to be a songwriter and I wanted to feed my family and have a middle class life, and not very many people make it in Broadway, but here I could do work that I enjoyed and keep the lights on and also satisfy myself by saying that's a damn good song about fluorescent lights or whatever.
I also love the scene where you're at the Library of Congress watching films, and you all of a sudden are like, it's Michael Brown. Oh my gosh, it's Michael Brown. Like this again, you're just like, that's the guy who wrote these songs, and he's often started them and he sang in them. And it just made me wonder, when I used to be a collector till I had the video store, and then I was just collecting in my own store, right? And it kind of beat it out of me. I stopped being a collector. But does it stop with the records now? Do you collect the films? Do you collect the playbills? Or is it just about the music?
It's spread out. The concentric rings. I didn't realize when I had a dozen records how far it would go. And yes, I've got a couple hundred records down here. Some of them are like just a 45 with one meeting kickoff song. Some of them are full book musicals.
Right.
But it's, yes, people that I meet along the way, people now sometimes come to me and say, my grandfather did this sort of work, and we've got a big trunk or a basement full of documentation and sheet music, and sometimes it's videos and films. Like when I finally got to Sid Siegel's house and realized he had scrapbooks and he had stacks of VHS tapes. Yeah, and Michael Brown's archive in his basement uptown was terrific. But now sometimes, either through a connection I have or out of the blue, reel-to-reel tapes. And that's a new frontier because so much stuff was created but never made it onto a vinyl record. But sometimes posers have filing cabinets full of 1972 Nabisco show, 1975 Hot Wheels show, 1974 Clairol show. And it's thrilling, but it's also like, this is now on me to make sure that this stuff, if I encounter it, is properly organized and digitized. And so I have a friend in Texas who helps me with reel-to-reel tapes. I do have a reel-to-reel player I've inherited from someone, but it needs work. That's a rainy day project someday to take that apart. But yes, reel-to-reel tapes, playbills, programs, photos. Costume designers gift me portfolios full of sketches for the costumes for the Cadillac show.
That's so great. It made me wonder, the records that you find, were they just handed out to the people that were sitting there watching this thing? And what are the condition of these records? Because to me, I bet there are a ton of them that people just didn't even play.
I think that is very true. You find a fair number that are still sealed.
Wow.
There is a wide range. Some were definitely only given out to the attendees at a very specific meeting. And there's a couple shows I have where on the record cover, it's like all the salesmen gathered on the lawn in front of the hotel or whatever. And you think, okay, I guess they pressed at least 211 copies of this record,
Right.
but probably not many more than that. And then you
Wow.
have ones, Bathrooms Are Coming is actually a relatively common one. GE Go Fly a Kite. I think sometimes the company pressed up a lot of them and gave them out to just industry insiders, even if you hadn't been in that thing. Just like, oh, look at what the fun we're having. Yeah, we're a top level company getting it done with the prestige events and all that. You'd think that car dealer announcement show records would be pretty common, and many of them are, because there are however many thousands of Ford dealers or Chevy dealers. But there's one that's been on my want list for decades. One copy is known, and I don't own it. It's a Ford show, but it must have only been pressed a few dozen copies to give to like the executives or something, and somehow it never got out to the wider world.
Did you ever get a copy of the Gold Growing record
Gould
that
Growing.
Don has,
Yes.
that you're like, ooh, did you ever get that?
Wonderful story. A guy in Illinois named Angel got in touch with me, maybe through the movie's Facebook page or something a few years ago. He had just watched Bathtubs Over Broadway, wanted to express how lovely he thought it was, which is thrilling. We love those messages. And then he said, oh, by the way, I have that Gould record. My dad worked at Gould. This record wasn't his, but I saw it at a garage sale once for $0.25, so I got it as sort of a joke. And I wrote back and said, oh, well, thanks. Great to hear from you, Angel. Now, you say you have this Gould record. Would you be open to, I don't know, a trade or me buying it outright? If it does have the sentimental value for your family, I don't want to get in the way of that. I'm not trying to, convince you to give it up if you don't want to give it up. And he wrote back, you mean to tell me even now you don't have Gould Growing? And I said, no, it cannot be obtained. There's what?
I felt so bad for you in the film.
No, I knew that, number one, I would probably get it someday, and in that case, I was right. But also, I've gotten such a Zen-like feeling about all this stuff that's maybe never going to get off my want list. The important thing has happened, which is that the story has been told and the genre has been rescued. I have a lot of records. I'd like to find a few more, but if I don't find any more ever, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. We have dragged the whole genre back from the edge of the abyss. Amazing. And a lot of great people have had their lifetimes of work validated. And Hank Beebe and Sid Siegel, late in their lives, suddenly they have fans. This was just so much fun for me. So, yeah, I'd like to get a few more records. And I did get Gould Growing. It was a sweet story. But whatever happens from here on in is just gravy.
Yeah, let's talk about The Bathrooms Are Coming, because, you say it is perfection on vinyl in the film. And, yeah, just even the cover art is incredible. Just the caveman toilet and the hillbilly with the moonshine, and you can't figure out the storyline in it. And I love, there's like a monk standing in front of some outhouses that say like Matt and John on them. That's my favorite. It has that feeling of like, if you saw this and you were into Outsider or whatever, you just had to buy it at Goodwill for, $2 or whatever and take it home. But the songs in it are killer. It's so sincere and so professional that, again, like you, these songs got stuck in my head and wouldn't leave. So it's weird to just be shopping and then seeing my bathroom is, a very special kind of place. And, it's where I wash and I cream. And like, you're just like, I'm saying this out loud, absentmindedly, you don't know. And I'm sure you had the same problem. But I love that the film, it's like really the heart of the film. The people who worked on it were just lovely, Sandy and Pat, and just their stories, and just, I don't know, it just seemed like the perfect thing to center. There's a reason, I guess I'm saying there's a reason why people love this record.
Yeah, I mean, just conceptually, as soon as you hear there is a musical about plumbing fixtures. You just think, all right, come on. I know this is something that you comedy writers think is funny, making this shit up, but and then it turns out, no, comedy writers did not make this up. It exists in a universe where it's entirely reasonable to create an original a musical about plumbing fixtures to get distributors excited about the new product line. And then, yes, the perfect storm of just conceptually, and then you see these pictures on the cover and you think, what alternate universe is that? And can I ever get through this cover and go into that universe? And then you listen to the record and you think, there should not be songs on these topics according to usual logic. But now that there are, we have to admit that they are done by very, very talented people who knew exactly what they were doing. And
it's a plumbing revolution, let's face it.
So, and then that would have been enough. But then I started meeting the people, and all the men had died by the time I was looking into this, sadly. But all the women in that show I got to meet. And Pat and Sandy, you see me hanging out with. Sue Ellen, who plays Femma. She's in the movie a little bit. I just talked to her yesterday, actually. But
see, I love that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sometimes I forget. Like, oh, I'm chatting with Sue Ellen. Oh, how you doing now? Blah, 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 doing this and that. And then I remember, oh, my God, I'm talking to the cast member from The Bathrooms Are Coming.
Right.
That shouldn't be happening.
Right.
Yeah, it's so great. And then to meet these people and to get to know their families and their kids who, and I've heard this from a few people's families, you did such a great thing for Dad.
Yeah.
But also for us, because we never really could go into that world where he was. But now we felt like we could kind of see what he was doing for real. And what a great vindication for somebody who'd worked on great stuff for all these years and felt like, well, no one will ever understand it or even know about it. And then I show up and say, guess what we're going to talk about? And guess what is going to be in this movie? I don't know that anything like that can ever happen for most of us. I think most of my work is not going to be as carefully hidden as industrial musicals by design, something the public was not supposed to see or hear. But yeah, I just feel like, all right, I've got a couple of lovely kids, and I've had these adventures that have brought some great joy to wonderful people. So my time on Earth, if it ends tomorrow with a piece of falling masonry knocking me out on 3rd Avenue, it will still have been fine.
Oh, for me, it's a fire escape ladder hitting me.
Oh,
so a kinship, definitely on the street.
I'll watch for that in the obituary.
It's very touching to see your daughters in the film talking about how they thought these things that were made up, they just thought they weren't real. I think the film does have such a surprising emotional core. And this, like the scenes with Hank Beebe talking about his mother, not really understanding what he did, and just he overheard her, or through hearsay, her saying that it's nothing but a bunch of commercials. Mm-hmm. And he was just, I want her to see this amazing work and appreciate it. And you're there, and he's being so open, and then just the way that he can just then all of a sudden just hit the piano and it just comes back, muscle memory. These things that were written for one time.
Yeah, I think he had, before we got there with the camera crew, I think he pulled out some sheet music and ran through Diesel Dazzle a few times.
Okay, because it was amazing, yeah.
But Sid Siegel, I don't think he had any preparation when he starts playing "We're the Distributors, Kindly Distributors."
Yeah, there's no sheet music. He's just, oh my God.
And he's knocking it out, and he doesn't remember the lyrics, and I'm singing and goes, oh, that's right, that's what it was, yes.
Was it hard for you not to get emotional during the making of this film? You're here with your heroes, and they're just being so gracious with their time and talent.
I think in the moments when I was with people like Sid and Hank and Pat and Sandy, I was just so giddy that I can't believe this is happening. This is going to be so great. It's already so great, and it's just going to get greater. There are a few points in the movie where I choke up when I'm talking about how when Sport and I were working on the book, I was so anxious that it get done in time so some of these people could see the book while they were still with us. And
Sure.
there's the picture of me with Michael Brown very late in his life, and he's holding one of the first copies of the book.
It's great.
And just feeling like, okay, we did that right. And these people got to see that this was real, and we're appreciating them, and we're celebrating a lost American art form. And talking about how amazing it is to consider me sitting next to Hank Beebe at a piano with a song that we wrote together.
Yes.
Rewind all these years before, when I'm picking up, I don't know if it was Diesel Dazzle or the American Motors Show, and the first time I look at the name and I see Hank Beebe, and I just don't know who that is and can't imagine caring. I have no frame of reference to know that this is someone who will be hugely important in my life the first time I run into one of his records. And then all the years later, you see in the movie where I'm speaking at Sid Siegel's memorial service, Hank made it to 96.
Oh, amazing.
And I saw him many times in his final years. I'd go up to Portland, Maine every few months. But when his time finally came, his family asked if I would speak at his service as well. So I felt like this is a rare, singular honor to be able to do that and talk about him in a way that his other colleagues and friends couldn't quite talk about. They maybe by this time had seen the movie and knew about this part of his life, but
Well, you in the movie you say, how does a cynical comedy writer with comedy damage get emotionally involved with people who wrote musicals about ball bearings and light bulbs and bathtubs? And it's the truth. It was meant to be. It's fated, you know.
yeah. And I talk sometimes about, and maybe you have points in your life where there was a fork and you took one side and this entire alternate universe version of your life didn't happen. I wrote a Simpsons episode back in the 90s, and at the time I'd been at the Letterman show in New York for several years already, but the Simpsons people said, oh, this was so great working with you on this. If you want to move out to LA and be on the writing staff of the Simpsons, we'd love to have you. So there's an alternate universe in which I do that. I uproot my young family and say, we're going to the Golden West. And I don't think any of this bathtubs, Hank, Sid, Pat, Sandy stuff could possibly have happened in that alternate universe. And maybe other great things would have happened, but I'm very happy with the way it played out and feeling like I did enjoy so much for myself and the thrill of the hunt with collecting, but also with finding people and realizing these people have wisdom about how to live and how to be a creative person. And then just with the book and Dave's movie shining a spotlight on them in such a golden way that I think people in blue states and people in red states love this movie. Anything you want to see good about America is in this movie one way or another.
Yeah. Are there archives being upkept, like Hank's, like when you're up in his attic looking at all these piles of sheet music and just ephemera, and it's just overwhelming. Have these things found a good home?
The Library of Alexandria, East Coast edition. Yeah. Hank's family no longer has that big house.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not 100% sure where everything is. I was assured that all the boxes, which had been moved and all the contents were now in lockable plastic storage bins, so the mice were not going to eat everything.
Right, instead of just open boxes.
Things were in better shape, I think. I don't know where it is now, but I went up there so many times over the years and would just scan and take pictures of so many things, feeling like I don't know what's going to happen to the thousands of pages and bulging folders. I'm just going to try to capture some of it. Same with Sid Siegel and Michael Brown. I think those archives are all still there. Both Michael and his wife Joy are gone now. I'm friendly with the two sons, and they're slowly trying to figure out what to do with all these things that if I hadn't come along, probably all of it would have gone into a dumpster. But now they feel like, well, someone does care about this.
in the film, there's some late period stuff. There's a Ragu one. There's a Walmart one.
Yeah. Redken hair care products, I believe we see a little bit of.
Has anything happened? I can't even think of an industry that would celebrate it or have the wherewithal to be like, let's bring everyone together and put on a show to celebrate our workers. But has anything happened recently?
It never goes away completely because anytime you get people together for a big company meeting, they want to throw in some sort of razzle dazzle that makes people excited and gets their heart rate up and gets them on their feet cheering. So they feel like, yes, we are bonded together on a great mission. And you will probably not see the return of the full book, musical, original music and lyrics. But I'll tell you a couple of things. Number one, several years ago at the Super Bowl, but not a Super Bowl commercial, Skittles decided to take a left turn. They created a one-shot musical called Skittles Super Bowl Commercial, the musical, which played here in New York City in Town Hall. I started getting wind of this thing, and people are telling me, have you heard about this? Are you talking to these people? I had not been consulted, but I got in touch with Skittles. I said, this is fascinating to me. By any chance, have you seen a movie called Bathtubs Over Broadway? And they disavowed knowledge of it, but then they said, do you want to come to the show as our VIP guest? And so I got to the show, and it was actually hilarious. It was so funny, so self-aware and twisted. But then there was a goodie bag for VIPs, and in my goodie bag was a vinyl record of the music from the show. It is the only 21st century vinyl on my collecting shelf. I thought, this cannot be a coincidence.
Wow.
There's no way this is a coincidence.
No, there's no way. Absolutely. Because I didn't know about this. And I've been obsessed with record collecting forever, but I didn't know how deep this went. And I just love your history through it. I just love, you befriending people because you were outbidding them on eBay in the early days. They're like, this person just keeps winning. Who are they? And then it's like, oh yeah, we're besties now. We're gonna write books, and it's just crazy.
Right. It is a great snapshot of a collecting culture, which I think is a very positive look at collecting where, maybe people are rivals, but the rivals always say, as soon as I get this record, I'm dubbing it off and sending you the files because you're going to want to hear this too. And I know you do the same for me. And from now on, if we both see something on eBay, whoever finds it first, the rest of us will back off. I've had deals like that with people. But the other thing I wanted to tell you about the modern incarnation of this stuff, there's all sorts of weird semi-industrial musical things on YouTube in the odd corners that have like 11 views. I've seen some wonderful, crazy stuff from like an Indian tractor and implement company that does a big Bollywood show with tractors. But a few years ago, I've occasionally in my post-Letterman years done some corporate gigs writing comedy for like a Silicon Valley company's sales meeting or something. But sometimes people reach out to me because they've seen the documentary. And in one case, a production company got in touch with me and they said, we're doing a big meeting for a pharmaceutical company and we love bathtubs so much. We think we can convince this company to do a big opening musical number. Would you be interested in consulting on that? Wow. So suddenly I'm writing lyrics for a pharmaceutical company's sales meeting. And they were so delighted with how it all went that I got flown out to San Diego and got to go to the meeting. So I glossed over.
So has your love of the industrial musical influenced any of your writing for your own music?
I'm sure it has. I mean, I just like the arcane and the improbable. Mm-hmm. And that's like what charmed me so much about the industrials at first. Like, this shouldn't be real, but if it is real and it's really good, jackpot. So I think I always have that impulse about writing unlikely songs. I mean, I have my more straight ahead songs about matters of the heart, but I also have songs about a whole range of odd things like anthracite coal. I have no one's ever heard most of these things, but
Well, I'm going
yes,
to put links to everything in the
okay.
show notes. Everyone can find this. They can find the movie, the book, your everything. I'll put it all there for everyone. Support Steve.
Thank you very much. I do have some new music. Finally got around to uh, dealing with a few things that had accumulated on the shelf, and now we're going into the Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, everything, Apple, whatever, all the places. So I sometimes think, I wish, that feeling of, I wish Hank or Sid were still alive so
Right.
I could play them my new song. But I know they would be happy to think that I was plugging away, not exactly the way they were, but they were always doing all sorts of things. Hank Beebe. Sometimes I've had people say to me, "This Hank Beebe in this movie, that's not the same Hank Beebe who wrote all the sacred music that my church uses, is it?" And I said, "Yes, it is. That's absolutely his other half of his career ended up being writing, uh, you know, masses and hymns and settings of biblical texts, and he's got a very large library, and his stuff is all over the world." Sid Siegel did all sorts of commercials. He did full-fledged musicals that were like done regionally in Chicago or the Midwest. Industrials were not what you usually aspired to, so you probably had other impulses that you were trying to keep going as well. I've talked to people who said, I would do industrials 6 months a year, then I would have enough money to spend the next 6 months working on my passion project.
Yeah, it's amazing. Even Martin Short in it is like, it was a great gig. You were learning on the job. The hotels were nice. You were paid well, and you had to learn this stuff really quickly. And he was like, it was great. If you're young, it was like the best.
Yeah, I mean, it could be at the upper level of how challenging it was. I've heard anecdotes. I love the war stories. Like you have this sort of crash course in learning this musical about the new uh, 78 Ford lineup or whatever. And all right, you've rehearsed for 2 weeks. You got it. It's the big night. You're in the wings waiting to go out, and an executive comes up to you and says, "Oh, glad I caught you. By the way, we just decided it's going to be a two-door instead of a four-door, and we changed the engine. It's going to be a 304 V8 instead of the 289 V8. Also, and he would like tell you 10 facts that had suddenly completely blown up your song." And they said, "So try to work that in there." And then the music starts, and you have to go out and somehow
Oh my
try to
God.
patch that together live on the fly.
It's so great. This movie, I've seen it so many times. I've shared it with so many people. Again, if you haven't seen it, yeah, there's a link here in the show notes. It's so fun. And it's just a really lovely story. David really captured an incredible, like you said, arc of like the ending of the show, like where you were as you went in, discovering this thing in real time, meeting the people who collected this stuff. But it's a really lovely telling of, again, chance encounters and where you're meant to be in the end. I just think it really captures that thing where it's like, I met the love of my life. I met the place I was supposed to be and creatively with people. It's like one of those stories where it's like there was nowhere else that no one else would have been in that office looking at those records than you.
And what seems now like how could it have been any other way at the time? So much of it, both with me starting to look into the records and the whole arc of the Letterman show ending when Dava started shooting in early 2014. We did not know that Mr. Letterman was about to retire. That was a
Right.
bombshell one day, and that seemed like, well, this throws everything into a tizzy. We don't know what this, but then it turned out a blessing because she could make this parallel of the golden age of the industrial musicals, and then between economics and tastes and this and that, it falls off a cliff.
Right.
And then I've had my own golden age for 25 years at this TV show, which is a very difficult, demanding job, but it's also just where I belong. And then that suddenly ends, and I'm falling off a cliff.
Right.
So a parallel we didn't imagine was coming turned out to work very well.
Yeah, and the book and the live shows you do, and I just love the performances you do with like Pat and things like where she sings My Bathroom, and you can tell she just feels like a star. I love it.
Yes, that was a remarkable evening, and Deva realized there was something brewing here, and she got on a plane with her camera gear and flew to Chicago to make sure she would get this moment where I invited Pat up on stage.
Yeah, and you're a good guitar player, even when you're singing about gutting turkeys industrially
That's
in
right.
the offices of the Late Show. Is that a real song, like industrial song, or what was that? Is that one of yours?
Well, I guess that answers your question about my songwriting. Taking improbable topics and deciding, no, this is going to be a song. Yes, the turkey processing song. There was a Letterman bit about, oh, here, let's take a look around at the office. Every Thanksgiving, the staffers gather and do different fun things. And I said, I could write a little song. And so they ended up, using the turkey processing.
Gobble, 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 gobble. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
That's a great song. Yeah. Okay. Well, see, you've done it. You've done the work. I've been looking forward to this so much. My wife she knows how much that documentary. I mean, I wrote down here, I'm an easy crier, but I'm just very happy that you found something that continues to give you so much joy. And from what you've given me from all those years of watching David Letterman too, it's like without David Letterman and, especially, like when I was formative as a kid and through Chris Elliott and growing on and just on and on and on, I wouldn't be myself without that. So, thank you for just doing that nightly.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. I don't view the Letterman show in the same way that a fan from the outside world does.
Sure.
I still have stress dreams about it. So I saw how the sausage was being made and how maybe I forgot how to make sausage and I'm in a panic. But yes, I mean, that is the weird thing. That should be the lead in the story that I spent 25 years as a writer for this show. But to me, it feels like the sub-headline. It's like this whole thing grew out of it. And I think Dave Letterman was surprised and charmed that first there was the book.
Yeah.
And then this movie, none of which would have happened without Dave's record collection. But as you saw, he's in the movie. I interview him, and he's also an executive producer on the movie. Very generously gave us a donation when we really had nothing and we're just trying to get off the ground.
Amazing. Well, it's so funny. You said you have these work dreams still. The reason I threw my hands up excitedly when you did that, I'm just remembering last night, first time ever since doing this show for 2.5 years, that I dreamed we did this episode. I remember it now that I haven't had a dream where I did the podcast already and it was going well. It wasn't a nightmare thing, but it was weird. Also, I was like, oh my God, you just unlocked this through your nightmares into my heavenly dreams. So
I think this is a positive thing. I think this means your brain has grown confident enough that this is a immovable rock in your life that you can now have a good dream about it.
That's great. Well, Steve, it was so good to meet you, but you might not like me after this difficult question I have to ask you, because at the end of every episode, I ask the same question, but I tailor it depending on what we're talking about. So on a scale with the Baby Pata Burp song from Mattel's The Poppins 1964 record being the lowest.
Oh my God.
And My Bathroom from 1969's The Bathrooms Are Coming is the highest. What song do you give yourself regarding your life with industrial musicals? With Baby Pata Burp song being the lowest and My Bathroom being the highest. What song would you say represents you?
I might take the Diesel Dazzle theme song. Diesel Dazzle, as I always like to say, 4 syllables, you get the whole genre. You get the heavy industry of Diesel and the showbiz glamour of Dazzle colliding, making something that never should have existed. But also, Diesel Dazzle is so resonant with my feelings about having gotten to know Hank and be a part of his family for a long time. And he wrote that music when I was, I think, an infant, with no notion that someday he and I would be sitting on a piano bench together, working on something well into the 21st century. And also, I am still an optimist about like the better parts of America. And I think of, yes, all right, the 50s and 60s, American society, all sorts of ugly flaws, but there was the optimism about we can keep making everything better for humanity and the world. And there's another song on Diesel Dazzle, We Were There, you may remember that one, all about the ways in which the unglamorous diesel engine makes life possible, whether engines and trucks or the infrastructure to build roads or haul freight, or a fishing boat at sea that's rescuing the survivors from a sunken ship. I feel a little bit of swell of pride with American can-do spirit that comes across in some of these songs, as corny as it is. So yeah, so maybe the world of Diesel Dazzle, when things had not yet curdled in the sort of malaise 70s, and knowing Hank, and that one has Hal Linden in it, and he and I have sort of, I talked to him on the phone once, but never met him in person. But a friend of mine was going to be at a show that he was at and got him to autograph my copy of Diesel Dazzle.
Oh, my God. And how many copies do you have of Diesel Dazzle?
Well, you need the mono and the stereo.
Oh, there you go. Well, you're right, because Diesel Dazzle is the right answer, but it was a three-way tie between Diesel Dazzle, Chevrolet Proud, and the sales training song from the All New York Family album of 1972. So, yes, I agree. Diesel Dazzle all the way. Thanks again, Steve. So nice to meet you.
My pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Revolutions Per Movie. We release new episodes every Thursday on your favorite podcast app and additional bonus episodes every Sunday on our Patreon. The show is a completely independent affair, so the best way to support the show is through our Patreon at patreon.com/revolutionspermovie, where you can get weekly bonus episodes and shows, exclusive limited edition flexi discs and records and CDs featuring guests that have appeared on the show, and other exclusive goods sent to you just for joining. You can follow us on social media at Revolutions Per Movie, and also find out more information about our various guests in the episode show notes. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week. Bye.